Welcome to Mentors.
Welcome, Kelli V, to Mentors. So glad to have you. So I want to begin by expressing my gratitude for you taking the time to do this interview. And, when I first met you, it was like, I don't know, like I knew it was a moment. One of those, one of these people that make an impression on you for the first time. So we have a lot in common with the comedy background. And so I would like you to introduce yourself because you're you have so many different avenues of your creative expression.
I love it, Kiki. I think they call it ADD. Okay, so let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. And I'm excited to be above ground. I should say I embrace life. I am from Dallas, Baylor Hospital, 7 pounds 11 ounces, because women don't usually brag about their weight. So I'm very excited about that moment. My background is that I started off as just a junkie for motivational speakers. I would listen all the time. And I grew up in the North Dallas area. And my father was airline pilot and my mother was a nurse. And so we traveled all the time, everywhere. But we settled in the Dallas area and went to school there. Loved it very much. Went to school in the piney woods of East Texas. I don't know if you've heard of Nacogdoches, but Stephen F. Austin State University. And I majored in business management and marketing and Spanish. So I promised myself I would learn all languages. So I do speak many languages. My mother is Greek, so I speak Greek. My father was Czech, so I speak Czechoslovakian. I studied Spanish. I studied French. I can speak a little German. And I'm really good at Texan, okay? When people say y'all and gonna and fixin' to, that's kind of my thing. And it's funny, Kiki, I don't know if you find this out, but the tireder I get, the more Texan I sound. Does that make sense? What else do you want to know? I could go on and on, but I'm boring myself. So, you and I go way back. And I don't know if you remember me, but you certainly made a huge impression on me when we were doing the comedy gym days. Remember?
Yes, I just didn't remember meeting you back then.
I had big hair. I had really big Texas hair. And since I started wearing my hair back, a lot of people think that I'm the love child of Steven Seagal and Demi Moore. So I take that. And I always say that I cannot change my hairstyle until I run out of business cards, because now I have a picture. But when I was doing comedy back then, I had the big, like, sort of like the Billy Ray Cyrus. What is it? Business in the front and party in the back. Big hair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was the big fluffy. And anyway, so I think I can see why you might not recognize. And plus, maybe I wasn't as memorable then. What do you think? No. Maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe I was too self-centered.
It's a blur. The 80s were a blur for me. I don't know about you, but I'd like to read about what I did.
Well, did you start off in comedy, Jim? I mean, when you started with comedy, did you use Sam Cox for your mentorship, so to speak?
Well, yes. I'm glad you brought that up. In the very beginning, let's just say I came from a funny family. Things would happen that a lot of families would think would be disastrous, but we would all find a way to laugh. And I had funny family members, like a grandfather who, would say things like, you know how to motivate people. This is my Greek grandfather. He said, you got to know what makes them tick and what ticks them off. And it was funny the way he said it, but it was wise, and at some point, I have an apron that says, I'm not yelling, I'm just Greek. Okay. So I'm talking loudly because that's what we used to have to do to compete for airtime in my family, to get messages across and stuff.
Right.
But let's just say I entered a joke contest once. I mean, we were always telling funny stories, but I entered a joke contest once in a bar with some friends, and I won drinks for my group. And they said, you should do this because we're benefiting from your humor. So I was like, oh, okay, all right. But that's how part of it started. And then I discovered the backdoor comedy, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Linda Stogner and Jan Norton.
Yes, me
And
too.
and from backdoor comedy, I met all of these comics, and they said, you ought to come to Comedy Gym. And that's how I evolved into Comedy Gym and Sam Cox's classes, where we would meet. We would all pay something like $25 for the hour to go to the Improv, which is really cool. And it'd be a room full of people, you know this. And we would all come from many different levels of experience. And this is what I loved about Comedy Gym. Somebody would get up on stage for the first time and someone would go, what is your name? And you'd say, Kelli. And they'd say, well, how old are you? And you'd say, 24. And the whole room would yell, do you remember this? The perfect age to start a comedy career. And then somebody else would get up there and say, how old are you? And he'd say 68. And everyone would yell, the perfect age to start a comedy career. Right? It was great. It was a really cool cradle of people who were very supportive. And Sam's mind was going all the time. And I was very I admired very much his process. I think a lot of people, when they get going, it starts to become autopilot, how they create and how they think, and he would just spout out a different punchline and everybody would go, oh yeah, because he cut to the chase. And a lot of us were still working through the fog, and I love that. I love that about him. I've had many great mentors in comedy and then in business, because I was a junkie, I was a motivational junkie for so long. Some of the people I brought visual aids. Can I show you visual aids?
Sure.
These are some of my mentors. Can you see? This is Zig Ziglar.
Yes.
Zig Ziglar is our local motivational guru. And then Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup Soul. And of course, awesome. Jack's partner was Mark Victor Hansen, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then one of my other favorite gurus was Stephen Covey. So I figured if I just stand right behind him, I could crop everybody out and pretend like it was just Stephen and I. Anyway, and mentors, my folks, my parents.
Of course.
Those are just some of the mentors. But it's funny, Kiki. There's people who know they're mentoring you, and then there's people that have no idea that you're following in their footsteps.
Right.
I like that.
Right. That's how I found it to be in the artist industry too.
Yeah.
We do certain things and shows and etc. to worm our way to show ourselves, and show our creativity. But so we have an upcoming event at Sky Pony Gallery where you'll be performing again on August 22nd at 7 p.m. So inviting the public to that right now. And that is in Plano, Texas. So
come on out. I mean, it was so fun. Do you know that last weekend I was out with a friend of mine at the Balcony Club, and there were 3 people there from your show, from the show we did on the 22nd. Of the show we did in July, and they went, oh, we saw you at the Sky Pony. We're coming back.
Oh, right. Love that Balcony Club.
Yeah, the band is there, and it was really great. I don't know if you've ever seen this particular band, but I love them. But they had quite a following, and people were dancing and having a good time, and I loved that. It was really fun.
Probably Jerry Don Branch, maybe.
That's it. That is right.
Yeah. So
all the women with the cool hats were sitting together, so I knew that was your group.
I did kind of start that hat thing.
I love that. You know, Kiki, you've got so many cool things too in the gallery. I mean, I'm very drawn to the musical instruments because I also play the guitar. I play classical guitar, um, and I'm not that great. But my dad taught me how to play before I could read music, and he would play a note, and then I would play a note. So I kind of like learned how to mimic. The first song I learned was Classical Gas. I don't know if you remember that from Mason Williams,
Oh,
but if you play the same 10 songs for 30 years, you get pretty good at those 10 songs.
that's
So
right.
I know those 10 songs pretty well, you know. But I love all kinds of music. I'm a very big fan of the Dallas and Allegro Classical Guitar Society, and I'm actually on the board there now. And you know, there's just so many different sounds you can bring in. But I love when you, in your gallery, you have the guitars and the cellos and the violins, and they're done with this beautiful mosaic and steampunk. Different. There's so many different styles.
Let me give a
I wouldn't be surprised if I don't walk out with one. I mean, I'll buy it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I don't leave with one at some point during your events.
that's my friend Susan Stoller to give a little plug for her. She's a very
I was,
creative artist.
she's really good.
And
But I
so,
love all your stuff. It's real. You have so many different genres that you do.
well, this is about you, Kelly. So, back to you.
But
You,
part of me is learning about others. So this is part of my passion,
so
right?
you're an irritational speaker,
Yes.
not to be confused with motivational. So,
Like that.
tell us about how you got started into being a speaker. That's pretty intriguing to be where you are
Well, you
now.
know, I first started out, you know, my lights are pretty hot in here. Can you see those? Look like I'm working really hard. Let me do
Oh,
this so everybody feels like I usually have a professional hair and makeup no, I don't have a professional hair and makeup person. But my lights are hot. I just redid my studio, so it's kind of hot in here.
oh, I'm kind of
You
sitting
know,
here in the dark. Uh,
I like that. I like that it's very very comfortable and warm. Your cave, I see there. You know, here's the deal. I would go to the library, and one day I went, you know, I was getting the books, getting all the motivational books, the Zig Ziglar, the Tom Hopkins, the Tony Robbins, Walk on Fire, Cole, you know, all those really motivational people. And the librarian said, well, we have those in audio form. We have those on cassette tape. That's how old I am. Okay. I think you haven't lived until you've rescued your favorite tape from the mouth of the cassette machine. You know what I'm saying?
done
And
that.
then, yeah, and we had like a very professional
Um,
fixes for that. We wound it back up, high tech fixes. But anyway, so she took me over to the audio tape section and she said, all of this. And I said, it's free. And she said, well, it's free unless you keep it past 2 weeks and then you have to start paying a fine on it. And I grabbed as many of those as they would allow me to check out. And I listened to them over and over and over. And I learned. Brian Tracy was also another one of my mentors. Um, and there were just so many wonderful tips. And I was like, this is great. You know, and you know how people watch YouTube now and they see hacks?
mhm.
Like hacks for cleaning and hacks for traveling. And basically what it was just this plethora of hacks, you know? Do you like
Right.
how I just kind of, do you like how I slipped the word plethora in? I just wanted everybody to know I'm a wordsmith. Um, anyway, I
Mm,
loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, why aren't more people? I mean, this is the biggest secret ever. There was never a line at checkout. You could always get a parking space up front. And now I have on my phone, it's called Libby. And Libby is, I guess, all libraries in the nation that choose to participate. It's like you can check out anything online digitally through your phone. And I just think it's magical. It's just magical. The thing about knowledge to me, the reason I love going into libraries is I knew I could stand in the middle of the library surrounded by all these books. And that you could ask me any question in the world, and I knew that somewhere in here I could find the answer for you. And now the answer is always going to be here. I mean, like every library is right there at our fingertips. I guess you could say that I've always adopted a mentee position on everything. I just love to learn. I don't know. I think that's you too. You love to learn?
I do love to learn. And
Yeah.
I was just telling my husband, Doug, about, we were watching this movie and there's this big room filled with books. And I was saying, someday I'd like to have a room just like that where with a fireplace, I could just go in and learn, every day, just pick a book and read it. But anyway, that's on the wish list, of course, to
I
have
agree.
a library. But now I've just got little bookshelves everywhere. But
Oh, I agree with you. And Doug, what a great guy is he. I mean, I love his whole genre. That the whole cowboy look. I love that.
yeah, he can go from cowboy to ZZ Top in 2 minutes, taking his hair down, or two
I love
seconds
it.
actually.
You hit a nerve though, because I always look at, and I love these virtual scenes that you can put on your computer. But my dream has always been to have that floor to ceiling library where you have to do the ladder
Me
to,
too.
climb up. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And you can do that virtually, but to really have that kind of, and let me brag just a minute about the amazing technology at the Dallas Arboretum. I don't know if you know much of the history there, but the DeGolyer estate, which was one of the first double shelved libraries. Okay. In other words, the way the library was set up, you could easily get about 25,000 books in there. But what the brilliant engineers asked for was for them to double the books. So there would be a row in the front and another row behind those books, kind of like a parking lot. And so instead of 25,000 books, there was room for like 50,000 books. It was also the first home in I think in the nation to start having recessed lighting, and that illuminated the beautiful library. So I could go to Half Price Books and just hang out and smell the books. Is that awful? Is that a bad addiction? I don't know.
I
But
don't know.
I
We
would
have that's me too. I mean, it's I love
I would
books.
like, oh, if I could just smell another Gone with the Wind. What? It'd be so good. But
Well,
I
I
do love
noticed,
that.
reading about you, I was looking at your radio days too. That's probably a big influence on your life as well, and
Yeah.
as far as your speaking career now.
Well,
And
that's right. That's what kind of part of the start for that was I had the background of all the motivational speaking, and then I wanted to go to see Brian Tracy specifically. He had this Phoenix program for leaders, and I went into my sales manager and I said, "I'd like to go to this seminar. It's a retreat for the weekend, and I'd like you to pay for it." And he said, "Well, you can do that on one condition." He said, "If you will take good notes and you come back and you bring us some of the wisdom, then I will pay for it." And so that's how everything started. I took great notes. I presented to our sales team, and then I realized that I could plan my whole calendar out with all of these wonderful motivational mentors. And then I would come back and teach. And then what ended up happening was I began to train the sales team. And then there were other industries that heard that my trainings were fun and meaty content. And so that's how that all kind of started. And from that, I was in radio for like 16 years. And halfway through the middle of radio, somewhere around the 8-year mark, maybe the 7-year itch, I think it was, I wanted to go on the road and do stand-up comedy. Because the whole time I was doing radio, I was sneaking into the weekend at Backdoor Comedy doing comedy, and I was going to Comedy Jam. And I was like, I think I could do it. So I went on the road for 3.5 years. And Kiki, I don't know if you did the road stuff. Did you go on the road very much?
yes, for about the same amount of time. I think it was 4, but yeah, that's pretty hard. But
Yeah, we did like 7 shows I did for $250, and that was woohoo. And sometimes I'd pay more to get somewhere than I would get paid to be there.
me too.
It
It's
was
all
the
learning.
it was the love, right? It was the passion for the art. And then at some point, You know how they say you don't know what you got until it's gone? Well, money was gone. So I went back into radio, but with a whole new outlook. I was like, I'm just going to make sure that I keep having fun with my clients. I want to have fun with the people I work with. And so that breeded a whole new genre, if you will, of humor at work. You know, how can we work smartly hard? How can we have some fun, get more done, and have more fun? And that whole started my speaking. And I went to National Speakers Association. Somebody told me about the group, and that's where the business part of my world really exploded, because not only were they really good speakers, they were really excellent on the platform, but they really had some great business models, and it really put some structure into what I was doing. It wasn't just being an artist, because there are so many people that are so talented, but they don't know how to market. And so part of that is finding either people that can help you do that, or you figuring out, what can I really do? And I went to National Speakers Association the first day. There's a local chapter here in North Texas. Still meet every month. And I remember I walked in and it was the craziest group of people I think I'd ever seen. And I said, these people are nuts. I belong here. And that's what
I was
happened. And I
thinking that.
joined. I joined.
Okay.
And
You found your niche.
yeah, but and guess what? I got to meet my mentor idols. I got to meet Zig Ziglar because of you go to these conferences and these people were just walking around like, amazing idols of the speaking and motivation industry. And I got to meet you remember, well, Jack Canfield. A lot of people don't realize that Jack Canfield used to be, he's the chicken soup for the soul guy, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's probably 350 million copies. It's in 150 countries. It was just an idea that he said, I think people want to hear good news. Why don't we do a compilation of good news? And then we have all these versions of the chicken soup books. I mean, it was just a really cool dream. But do you know that he was a middle school teacher? And Jack Canfield said that when kids would do really well, a lot of the parents and the teachers would say, I'm so proud of you. And he actually convinced them to change that verbiage just a little bit to say, wow, that was great. You should be so proud of yourself. So, what he was trying to do is train us to appreciate yourself, to not depend on outside appreciation. And I thought, man, that is earth moving. And I think he carries that with him in everything that he does. And so, yes, to meet him, to sit down and have some coffee and talk with him, 1 minute manager, all of these people that I've been reading all their books. And now I'm sitting there in the lobby of the conference having a sit down or having a dinner. It was really remarkable to me. I love what I do, and I love that they would sit down with you because it's what they do too. It wasn't like this crazy fan. We were literally talking about the principles. My cousins, because I'm Greek, Aristotle and Socrates, right? Distant, but I know we're related. I think we have that inborn questioning. You want to say, get to the bottom of this. Wow, where does that come from? Where do we get that idea, and how can I make this better? That's kind of like, that's my world.
I love your curiosity. And that group is still going on today?
Yeah, the National Speakers Association is still going strong. You can be in the national group, or you can be in a local chapter, or we actually have a virtual membership, so we have people from all over the world who aren't able to physically be there, but they can attend whenever they have time. And it's great. It's NSA, National Speakers Association, North Texas. And I want to tell you, I used to have the luggage tag, NSA. Now, you realize that NSA stands for a lot of things.
It sure
And some
does.
people think it's the National Security Association, the people that spy on you, right? And I remember I had this luggage tag, it was over my shoulder, and we were waiting in line, and I could see people behind me, and they were pointing at it like, and I turned around and I said, I said, oh no, I'm in the National Speakers Association. We talk to you. That other group, they're the ones that listen to you. They were
It's one way to get
relieved.
respect, right?
I took the tag off. I use a different luggage tag now. It just wasn't worth it. But when I first got started, there were people who were in the business who were, serious and dramatic speakers. There were people who were like, for instance, Jeannie Robertson. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she was a motivational humorist. She came out of North Carolina. She is really funny. She would just tell funny stories. Now, this woman was also a past what was that, Miss North Carolina, but the way she said it, she was Miss North Carolina. And she would tell these stories about her husband, who was extremely left-brained, and she used to call him left brain. And she was 6 feet tall, but when she would tell her stories, she would tell you she was 5'12". And she just told all these crazy stories. And then one day, one of her fans posted one of her videos on YouTube. At this point, now she had been speaking for probably 40 years, and she was 72 years old, still going strong. And they posted that video on YouTube, and it got more than 1 million views.
Oh my.
And the Jeannie Robertson one-woman tour show just exploded. And she went all over the country for at least another 5 years, selling out auditoriums like the Meyerson, being sponsored by Cracker Barrel. At some point, she was more comfortable sitting than she was standing. So Cracker Barrel had a rocking chair like they have at the porch on all the Cracker Barrels. And at the end of every show, they would they would give it away. They give away the rocker.
How clever.
And, and she was so funny. She'd say things, well, I'm off my rocker. let me give it to you now. But I was able to watch those people and emulate, because way back in the old days when I was reading a lot of books, I loved Irma Bombeck.
Mm-hmm.
She just had this style. It was fun, it was funny, and it was just, she seemed a never ending books that she was writing. What is If Life is a Bowl of Cherries? What Am I Doing in the Pits? Her titles were fun, they're funny. Another person I met in the comedy world, and maybe you got to meet him too, is Gene Parrott, who was the lead joke writer for Bob Hope and Phyllis Diller.
Oh, I did not.
And yeah, there was I went to some workshops that Gene Parrott did, and I got a chance to really learn how he wrote. And he was part of that Henny Youngman style, the setup and punch. Henny Youngman would say, "Take my wife, please." It was really quick humor. Today, a lot of the comics are telling stories. They're like long stories, and I'm like, this better be a big punchline, dude, because we're waiting. We are waiting. But when I met Gene Parrott, I didn't realize that not all comics write all their stuff. And I thought, well, now that's nice. Isn't that clever? And he wrote a lot, like I said, for Phyllis Diller and Bob Hope. At some point in my comedy career, the first year, Kiki, I did some work. I don't know if you did any work at Laughs.
No.
Guy's name was Gary, and if he booked you in the Oklahoma City, then he'd also book you at Taos, and he'd also book you in Albuquerque. He owned 3 clubs. And I remember he called me one day and he said, I brought my good radio professional habits with me. So if we had an appointment on a call, I would make sure to call you then. If you asked me to be there at a certain time, I would do that. Some of the comics were a little loosey-goosey. They weren't always as professional. And he admired that. I did have a pretty good set. He called me one day and he said, "Hey, Phyllis Diller would like you to open for her Southwest tour. Are you available?" And of course, I put him on hold for a minute and I went, I think I have those dates available.
Let me check.
And
Yes, I'll
Um,
rearrange my schedule of surgery and whatever else I have.
I have a lobotomy, but that can wait. In fact, it'll probably be better. And so he says, well, she used 3 criteria. She saw your video and she said she wanted to have a woman opener. She wanted one to be clean. He goes, that's you. And he goes, and he wanted one that was not as funny as she was. And you win.
All right.
So I was like, oh, great. That's just great. I'm honored. And I did go and it was fantastic. And of course, I read everything and watched every video I could before I went to meet her. And the stats were this. We call it laughs per minute, right? She did in 55 minutes 380 punchlines.
Holy.
That is, let's do the math. That is every 12 seconds a laugh. And I was like, oh, right. So the first night I go and I open, I did like a 20-minute open. The house is absolutely packed. And I go back in after I've introduced her, and I'm looking at my watch, the second hand. This is back in the day when we had a sweep hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, like clockwork, every 12 seconds, da 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 da, bam, da 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 da, bam. My husband Fang is so stupid. I asked him to lower the thermostat. He put it 6 inches above the floor. Bam. My husband Fang says, I'm cutting you off from all your sex. And I said, you don't even know where I'm getting it. Bam. Da 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 da. So it was every joke delivered and every show as if it were the first time. It was
Amazing.
magnificent.
Yep.
It was
Amazing
magnificent.
comic.
Yeah. But she was very, very, she knew how to read the room. She stayed on the script, but it seemed all spontaneous. It was absolutely flawless. And it was what a great mentee-ship that I had for that. That was all awesome. And I love that.
Well, we
That
are
was part of
running
the
out
comedy.
of time right now, but God, thank you so much. And you inspire me, and I can honestly say you're my mentor. So thank
Well,
you.
I have many. I thank you, Kiki. I have many more, and hopefully you'll edit out the non-funny stuff, and we'll have a pretty good interview, huh? What do you think?
Oh gosh, what do you mean the non-funny stuff? You're just wonderful to be with, and thank you. And I can't wait to see you on the 22nd at Sky Pony Gallery in
Well, thank you. If
Plano,
anybody
Texas.
would like to connect, can I give my email, or is that going to be in your notes?
How about we put that in the description below this video, and people can connect right to you.
That would be so awesome. Thank you
Okay.
so much. I can't wait till the next show coming up. You're awesome. Thanks for being the passionate artist that you are. Appreciate you,
Oh,
Kiki.
thank you. Just right back at you. I love talking to you, and we will see you on the 22nd.
All right. All right. Awesome. Everybody. Opa, that's Greek for abundance and happiness. So I hope you all have a great, great, great season. Thanks so much, Kiki.
Okay. Bye bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.